Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's full council meeting. First, I'd like to seek your approval to approve and sign the minutes of the annual council meeting held on the 20th of May 2024 as a correct record. So do I have your approval to sign those as a correct record? I do. Thank you. Next, do I have any apologies for absence? I have already Councillors Delaney, Drayson, Gordon, O'Groen, Hacking, Meir and Prochak. Are there any additions to that, please? There are none, and also to let you know that Councillor Cook will be taking part in our meeting today remotely. Now we come to the disclosure of interest. So are there any disclosures by members of disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests, non-registrable interests in matters on the agenda and the nature of any interest and details of the dispensations obtained, please? Yes, Councillor Cooper?
Just to declare, I'm a director on the Rother District Housing Company.
Thank you. And Councillor Maynard?
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. If it is called CB 2414, the BIFA contract and food waste update, I'm an East Sussex County Council executive member of East Sussex County Council. Clearly, County Council are the disposal authority, so I declare a non-prejudicial but a personal interest in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maynard. And Councillor Kirby-Green.
Thank you, Chairman. The same. I'm not an executive member of East Sussex, but I am a member of East Sussex County Council.
Thank you very much. Now, I need to make a disclosure. Sorry, no, there's no. Councillor Field, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Same interest as Councillor Kirby-Green.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And Councillor Clark. Councillor Clark. Are there any others? No. Please, can I? Yes.
Bexhill Town Councillor.
Bexhill Town Council. Thank you very much. And Councillor Burns.
Similarly, Bexhill Town Council.
Any others? Councillor Barnes?
I'm not sure it's necessary, but Etchingham Parish Council.
Thank you very much indeed. So simply, yes, Councillor Creaser?
Rye Town Council.
Sorry, could you mind repeating that, please?
I'm on Rye Town Council.
Rye Town Council, thank you. Yes? Battletown Council, thank you. We're having a multitude of disclosures today. Yes, that's a unique one. Yes, over there. And any more? In which case, yes. Etchingham Parish Council. There we are. A complete sort of geography tour of the entire district is taking place here. Okay. Now, I need now to make a disclosure, namely that, of course, I'm the chair of the Rother District Housing Company, but I have received a dispensation. So this is unique in the history of Rother District Council, a dispensation to chair the whole meeting from the Deputy Monitoring Officer in the absence of Councillor Meir. Okay, so just to let you know. And can I remind members to reiterate their interest at the time the matter is discussed? Okay? Right now I come to my own announcements, and I have quite a few. Starting off with the sad death of Councillor Guppy. And I think Councillor Maynard, you wish to say something about that.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. And there won't be many in this chamber who remember Councillor Guppy, but Councillor Guppy first joined Rother District Council in May 1999, alongside myself and many others. And on the death of the leader of the council at the time, Councillor Brampton, in January 2000, Councillor Guppy then became leader of the council in May. Councillor Guppy was a very hard-working councillor. He was certainly very much a hands-on councillor, and as leader of the council, he was certainly represented this council in many other organisations. He was, whether you agreed or disagreed with his political principles, he was a very, very active ambassador for this authority throughout his time on the council. He retired from the council in 2007, when he took up a role in the Home Office. I'm very sad to hear of his untimely passing. He was only 73 years of age, and I certainly, on behalf of this group, the Conservative group, send my condolences to his family. Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I would like, while I am standing though, and you have made your Chairman's announcements, to extend to the Council some more interesting, well, not some more interesting, but certainly some brighter news, insofar as many of you will remember Councillor Patton, who is the deputy of Councillor Gubby and myself, and you'll be aware that a certain Henry Patton won Wimbledon, and that's Councillor Patton's grandson. So, somewhat brighter news. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. Can I also explain that we didn't have prayers today because the person who was to deliver them unfortunately was taken ill, had to go to hospital, and therefore wasn't able to participate. Okay? But I'll be saying a bit more about those arrangements in a few minutes' time. My second task then is to thank two former members. Sorry, yes? Councillor Clark, sorry.
Yes, I just want to endorse what Councillor Maynard said. I'm one of the few councillors who was around when Graham Gubby was leader of the council. He was a very articulate man, a good listener, and him and his wife did a lot of charity work as well, which they didn't often talk about. He expected a lot from councillors, and I always remember he used to say to me, if the council's not working very well, look inward, it's our fault, nobody else's. He said, if people are not performing scrutiny or bringing things forward and motivating this council to work, it won't work. He said, so it's down to us to deliver, and he was always right. Good.
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I feel I should say something. I was a member of Councillor Gubby's first cabinet back when we went from a change from sort of council making decisions to the cabinet system under the then Labour government. And I always remember I came over one day on the train, one of the very rare occurrences when I came by train. And I was in the town hall and Graham said, I've got a proposition. What's that? He said, come and have a cup of tea and a cake. Right. So he drove to his house, sitting there in a cup of tea. He said, I'd like you to come onto a cabinet. So I had a natter for half an hour or so, and I said, well, I've got to catch a train. No problem, there's a train station just down the road. We drove down to I think it's Colinton Station, where no trains ever stop. They didn't used to then. So he said, just scoots down this road, drops me off the station. All right, there you go, next one. Be all right? Not long. All right. So I go to stand. There comes the right train. And there goes the right train. Oh, well, I'll get it. Then another train comes. What kind of station's this? And I think I waited for about 4 trains to Trundle Park and then to sort of an old rickety thing come on. Sort of almost like a request stop. Got to Bexhill. I missed the right train, so I sat around for another hour waiting for the next one. But there you go, and I've always remembered that don't go to Colinton Station because not much happens. It might have changed. It might have changed. This was 20 odd years ago, but at the time the trains didn't stop there. So yeah, I shall always remember. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Osborne, for that reminiscence. That was very interesting. Thank you. And thank the others for what they had to say in tribute to Councillor Gubby. Thank you both. So, my next task then is to thank the two former MPs for their contribution to the country and to their constituents. Whatever you may think of them, you know that is something which they set out to do. Respectively, Hugh Merriman, for Bexhill and Battle, and Sally Ann Hart, a former RTC councillor, for Hastings and Rye. Both worked conscientiously on behalf of their areas, Mr Merriman in particular working well with this council across party in the wider interest. And so I now go on to welcome our new MPs, Dr Kieran Mullen for Bexhill and Helena Donimore for Hastings and Rye, and hope that we will be able to work with both effectively on our common aims and projects. My third point is to warn that I will be explaining the council's processes as we go along today. You will understand these, but they may not be so clear to a member of the public. As there is a considerable cost to the live streaming, it seems appropriate to consider those listening in. My fourth point is to explain why the discussion on the size of the planning committee has not appeared on today's agenda. It is because it has been decided to have a full discussion bringing together all aspects of the functioning of the planning committee later, by which time we may have an indication of government policy on this subject, which could have a considerable bearing on the way forward. And my fifth point is an announcement about how I intend to deal with prayers. I'm going to make a change to the procedure, moving it closer to that of the County Council. What I propose is that from now on, prayers will begin at 6:15, will end at 6:20, and then there'll be a 10-minute break before the beginning of the council meeting. This will mean effectively that people will opt into prayers rather than opt out, and it's therefore, I think, a movement in the direction of inclusion. So those points there. So now I turn to my record of what I've been doing. It's not quite as formidable as it looks. It's in very large handwriting. So let me just reassure you before I get going. So my first task as chair was to open the new tennis courts in Edgerton Park. These splendid new facilities were created by a partnership between the Lawn Tennis Association and the government, resulting in 5 immaculate bookable courts. The courts promote fitness, fun and agility for all ages and all abilities, including modified tennis for those with disabilities, and coaching is available for those wishing to up their game or try a new activity. Rother's part in all this was to play its part in the planning and in the execution, an example, you might say, of how we have served the public. Next, I attended the 50th anniversary of the Kent and East Sussex Railway, held alongside its partner, the Rother Valley Railway, which was christening a new turntable to turn round locomotives on steam-hauled trains. So I was afforded the spectacle of Hugh Merriman, the former MP for Bexhill in Battle, and then the Transport Minister pushing the mechanism to get a huge locomotive to face in the opposite direction. It was to prove his last chance to turn Britannia, for that was the engine's name, around. When the section of line at Robertsbridge meets up with the Kent and East Sussex Railway, a through journey from Tenterton to Robertsbridge and beyond will become a regular occurrence. Joined up thinking in every sense. This was followed by 2 more solemn occasions, marking one of the most significant moments in the history of civilization. D-Day, which is still the largest naval, air and land operation ever mounted. The first commemoration on June the 6th at Pevensey Castle, hosted by Wilden, Rother, Eastbourne and East Sussex councils, was attended by over 200 guests, led by the Deputy Lord Lieutenant of the county, and featured the concert band of the Royal British Legion and the Grenouille Pipers. Bexhill was amongst the places in which soldiers were billeted, who played a significant part in those momentous events. One such billeted in this town was Bill Minnan, the piper, the only man on the beach in a kilt, who encouraged the troops with pieces like The Road to the Isles. He was still piping away when a contingent from Bexhill crossed the iconic Pegasus Bridge, incidents recorded in the film The Longest Day. Many councillors and officers from this council were deeply moved by the playing of the last post. The following Saturday, a further commemoration of D-Day was held, again well attended by Rother councillors, this time on the Metropole lawns in Bexhill. It was good to see and have an opportunity to interact with some of those whose bravery and determination safeguarded the liberties and rights which we continue to exercise and defend today. One of the pleasures, change the tone, one of the pleasures of being chair of this council is that it affords opportunities to learn about the work of charities which do extraordinary work without being widely known. Meditech is one such organisation. It recycles unwanted medical equipment and it provides medical training abroad in the latest surgical techniques, thereby saving lives and improving outcomes. I learned that it provided essential equipment to various GP surgeries across Rother, while also educating surgeons in microsurgery throughout Africa, showing that charity does not end at home. Another organisation about which I've learned is the wonderful Create Music, whose concert in Hastings I attended with my wife, following which we were joined by the Vice Chair, Councillor Andrew Mayer, for a concert at the Delaware Pavilion, which also featured the Bexhill-based Ukraine Choir and the London Mozart Players. My most recent engagement has been at Seaford, where I heard inspiring stories about the ways in which charitable organisations are serving the needs of the people of that town, and in particular, taking initiatives to overcome loneliness and encourage participation. As I draw my remarks to a close, I would like to remind members that Rother Food Banks are the Chair's charity. Owing to the cost of living crisis, there has been a decline in donations, and this underlines the importance of their work. There will be a fundraising dinner at the Shipperoo later this year for the food bank at a date still totally to be determined, but will be round about November the 20th. Finally, a date for your diary. The Rother Civic Service is scheduled for the afternoon of October the 13th. The service will include a multi-faith element, and it is my intention to extend an invitation to all charitable organisations in Rother and to members of the general public. I will provide further details later. Thank you. Now we return to the agenda. I say that. Where is the agenda? Here it is. Right. Okay. So, the next item on the agenda is item 5, to answer questions from members of the public, if any, in accordance with paragraph 10 of the Council Procedural Rules. I don't believe there are any. Is that correct? It looks like it. And similarly with item 6, to answer questions from members of the Council, if any, in accordance with paragraph 11 of the Council Procedural Rules, and again, there aren't any. So now we move on and to item 7. Now, at this point, we will consider the recommendations made by the Cabinet to full Council. And so the agenda item is to receive the report of the Cabinet on matters for determination by full Council at its meetings held on the 15th and the 29th of July. Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to call over the items as per the agenda, but I would just like to point out before doing so that there is a typing error on the item CB 24/13. It refers to the Rural Rother Infrastructure Fund, and it should state the funding pot. So perhaps you may have picked that up or otherwise. I've been asked just to give a brief verbal update of the Cabinet meeting that we've just completed with regards to the Blackfriars development, of which members were invited to a briefing quite recently in order to identify the options going forward here. As a milestone, this council adopted under a corporate plan in 2014 Blackfriars to be included as a corporate priority project. It's been beset by several challenges, of which we all know about, so I think there's no need to be going into those at this moment in time. But I believe that the option that has come forward, being to deliver 130 affordable housing units and 70 open market sale units, with an estimated loan facility of 15 million being provided to enable the development. This has really been crafted by the housing company, the chief executive, that's his role, Neil Tipple, COO, and officers that have brought this together, because I think we're all looking back in November 2023 when it all looked rather uncertain. So I'm delighted that we've been able to bring this forward. The report, which will be available to all members and the public after this meeting, just identifies the work that's been done and the decision that was made by Cabinet this evening in order to proceed forward. This is an excellent option and outcome of something which all governments have identified a need to providing homes, and that's the important part of what we will need to be doing. And we will now hopefully start to see the properties being built starting later this year or early part of next year. Chair, Mike.
Thank you very much, sir. So to start again there are reports on a number of different topics. We now need to find out whether councillors wish to comment on or object to the contents of these reports. I will call out each in turn. If no one speaks, it can be assumed members do not wish to comment. So the first one then is CB 2413, Strategic Community Infrastructure Levy Allocations Panel Governance, and I can already see Councillor Barnes. Thank you. The second one, CB 2414, is the Biffa Contract and Food Waste Update. Councillor Osborne, I can see. And thirdly, CB 2415, the Capital Programme Update. I can't see anybody on that one. And finally, the Blackfriars Housing Development. And there appears to be nobody on that one. Okay. So I now move that the whole of the report, with the exception of the reserved minutes, be approved and adopted. Do I have a seconder to that proposition? Councillor Stanker. Thank you. All those in favour, please. All those against? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. I shall now proceed to deal with the reserved minutes. And so the first one is CB 2413, which is Councillor Barnes.
Chairman, thank you. I wish to move an amendment. After the words approved and adopted, subject to the reinstatement of the unanimous recommendation of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, that the two sub-funds of the Rother Infrastructure Fund be retained. But that when a project has demonstrable benefits to both Bexhill and the rural areas, funding from the sub-fund covering the area in which the project is located can be supplemented by a sum drawn from the other sub-fund. I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Yep. Councillor Mary Barnes, thank you. Now we now come to the debate on that. Who would like to speak on this subject, please? Councillor Barnes.
Yes, I think I should briefly explain, Chairman, why I remain unhappy about this particular decision taken by Cabinet. And I've looked at their reasons with some interest. I think the thought that Overview and Scrutiny did not know what they were doing and confused the sub-funds to the Rother Infrastructure Fund with the other two sub-funds is somewhat insulting to that committee. We all know that small projects are essentially for a different fund. We are talking about large projects here. And I still don't quite understand the reason why the change is being advocated. Because already there was provision that in exceptional circumstances, both sub-funds could be drawn upon for a large project that benefited the whole area. So the change must have a purpose. And try as I will, I have not yet been able to extract the reason for the change. The only remark that bears on it was the remark in the paper, and it was made at Cabinet again by the relevant officer, that this somehow would make a larger sum available. There can be no larger sum than the sum of the two funds. So the fact you can draw on both funds already, why make the change? It can only be because there is worry that too much will be spent in one area or the other. The second reason, which may be lurking here, is that behind it, a parish council might actually have a wider project. But why not? If Burwash, for example, wanted to come forward with a project for a community hub that embraced the doctor's surgery
with a massive extension to take health projects, including those coming from the primary care network, why not? Yes. It seems to me that what we have here is a move against fairness, because other people than infrastructure providers should be able to propose. Secondly, against transparency, because we don't actually know where the money is going to be spent. But finally, and it seems to me this is the most important one, is in all the rural areas, we know that our GP practices are wildly out of date. They will not deliver the primary care agenda, which is now essential to the reform of the NHS. And really, it should be not beyond the wit of man to actually see that the current setup allows people to propose projects in the rural area and for funding for genuine, rather wide projects to come from both funds if that is necessary.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barnes. I have Councillor Maynard wishing to speak, but I first, in order to balance the debate, would be interested to know whether somebody would like to speak on the opposite side. There is nobody. Yes, Councillor Kinnan.
Yes, certainly at the time when this is being spoken about, I put it forward as well, because when you're sitting on the infrastructure panel, it's very clear that if we have one pot of money going forwards, we're going to be working with the infrastructure plan going forward, which will be for any large piece of work across the piece. And the comment that's been made is there's a lot of requirement to via money from one side to another, which seems unnecessary, when in actual fact we could just have it in one pot, one fund. It would be visible because it would be part of our infrastructure plan, which is attached to our local plan. So I'm at a loss to see why we would not think that having one fund that we can just all go to and show the direction of travel, because in actual fact we would be prioritising that on the panel linked to our infrastructure plan.
Thank you, Councillor Kinnan. Councillor Maynard, now please.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. And there's been quite a lot of debate about this, both in meetings and outside meetings, because, and I'd include ex-councillor Vinehall, who had a very long phone conversation with me about this very matter. And let's be absolutely clear. When the current SIL arrangement was considered, that was only 2 or 3 years ago. And I have to say that if something is broken, you obviously, as a responsible council, you would seek to fix it. But it's not. It's not. And what the existing system allows for is it allows to be SIL to be spent where it is raised. And if anybody in this room refers back to the whole premise of SIL, it is exactly that, is that it allows to be spent where it is raised. And I, for one, and I will put a scenario forward, if there was a large development within my own ward, and then that money was then spent in Bexhill, that is fundamentally wrong, Chairman. Fundamentally wrong. And it may be that there are some large projects that are already allocated in Bexhill. But, Chairman, I would put it to you, and I would put it to other members of this authority, that we don't want to go back to the them and us that was in this council chamber when I first joined it, in a fight between rural and Bexhill. And we often hear it when we go out to our parish councils about the enormous sums of money that go to Delaware Pavilion. We hear it again and again at parish councils. But let me be really clear. When you make a planning decision, whether a particular doctor's surgery is full to capacity is not a planning consideration. We hear it time and time again. Yet we know, as councillors that represent rural areas, and I'm sure you do in those urban areas as well, that our doctor's surgeries are bursting at the seams, and it is highly likely that there will be a need to support doctor's surgeries when they need to expand to accommodate even a small amount of the new housing that's promoted as part of our local plan. The fact of the matter remains that for that money to be spent where it is raised to support, for example, an expansion of those doctor's surgeries would seem to me to be not only the right thing to do, but the best use of that expenditure. To spend it on a project in Bexhill is the wrong thing to do if the houses are being built in the rural areas. So I think to have those two pots and under exceptional circumstances to divide from both is acceptable. But the whole principle of having a rural and a Bexhill one is the right thing to do. That's why it was the right thing to do 3 years ago, and that's why it's the right thing to do in terms of maintaining the status quo, Chairman.
Councillor Maynard, do I have any further contributors on this subject, please? Councillor Kirby-Green, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to say that I think it's a bit like the planning thing we had at the last meeting. We seem to be answering a question that we don't know what the question, or that we seem to be answering a problem that we don't know what the problem is. At the moment, we can take from both pots. So I just feel that we're doing something for the sake of it, and not being told why obviously makes people query why. You know, is there something we don't know? This has been raised by some of my parish councillors who've actually seen this on the agenda tonight. They've immediately said, well, what does that, Bexhill are trying to pull the cash. You know, and that is unfortunately what is being seen in the rural areas. And I would just say, I obviously wasn't at the scrutiny meeting, but this sentence could come from Russia. The concerns from the OSC demonstrated a lack of knowledge of the SIL processes and intentions. I do think that's quite insulting to members of I'm not on scrutiny, but I think it is quite insulting to members of scrutiny to have that in a report. Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Green. And Councillor Field now, please.
Thank you. Like other members here, I can remember when SIL first became a thing, and there was a lot of money, and it was distributed behind closed doors by senior members of staff, and there was no democratic input. And I think the democratic input that we have has changed and improved the system beyond measure. And I do see the need for the SIL to shadow the corporate plan and for it to shadow the strategic infrastructure. But I also think that removing the rural pot sends, as Councillor Kirby-Green implied, a very difficult message out to the rural areas. We know we have a good SIL panel, we know we're very fair, and we know we're open-minded. I think there's an issue with what we call it. That's my main problem. Thank you.
Councillor Field, do I have any further speakers on this topic, please? Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, previously it was under the decision of the Chief Executive with regard to where SIL Fund went, and when challenged on this, it wouldn't actually give us the information back in 2019. We've moved a long way forward since then. It was a SIL panel that met earlier this year and felt that the part of it should be looked at a lot closer. I watched overview and scrutiny, and there were many members on there that were quite bemused by the whole terminology of SIL. And there were many members on there that said perhaps we could have a briefing so that we could fully understand it. And that was agreed, and that came forward. And I believe there's a lot of debate has taken place at scrutiny. At Cabinet, we fully understood exactly what the intentions were. And I believe, just looking at one or two things, I believe £1 million that went into the Robertsbridge surgery, they haven't raised £1 million through SIL in Robertsbridge, I wouldn't have thought. Have they? I wouldn't have thought so, no. And, the money that's gone to Battle for the railway station, well, the money hasn't come in there. So we are one district council looking after Rother residents. And I get really quite uptight when we get this rural Bexhill situation. We are all in it together looking after our residents. Yeah. That's what we have a responsibility for. That's why we are elected, to serve the residents of Rother. And of course, within our own wards, there are local ward issues that we would respond to. But I believe that the report, the briefing, and the report that's come forward from officers actually supports all that we want to do as a council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Councillor Barnes?
Just a brief response, because it is important that we are not questioning the advances that were... I'm allowed to reply.
So can I just say, can you just make a brief reply?
I'm making it as briefly as possible.
Thank you.
Chairman, we are not debating most of the improvements. We think they are improvements. We support those. What we are querying is the appearance of unfairness by dispensing with those sub-funds, and the perception is there. I wish it weren't, but it is there. And when you look at the Levelling Up funding, quite rightly, most of that is going to be spent in Bexhill. But there are people who then say, there are projects out in the rural area. You've been very good so far, because we've had a rural fund, projects have come forward, they have been spent. You can draw, and you do draw, on both funds if you need more money from one or the other. There is a shortage of money in Bexhill at the moment, but it's about to be rectified because most of the projects in North East Bexhill have at long last, thank God, begun. And Bexhill will have, actually, I think, the bulk of the SIL in future. But the principle remains that SIL should be spent where the houses are inflicting burdens on the community. That was why it was devised. It was to actually buy support for that housing. And this is in danger of undermining that support.
Councillor Barnes. The members of this House, this group, have been very, very good at listening to each other's contributions throughout the debate. But can I just remind members, please do not make side comments when speakers are actually speaking to the full council, because it could be distracting for the speakers. So if I could just say that. Yes, certainly.
Yes, Chairman, I just wondered if you could clarify when members can speak twice.
My understanding is, and this has been confirmed by the Chief Executive here, that they do have the right to reply. That's what the Chief Executive...
Making another speech.
As I repeat, that is a right of reply, and that, of course, a right of reply is another speech. That's what it means, a right of reply. Okay? Yeah? Okay, I shall now move... Sorry, Councillor Maynard.
Chairman, I call for a recorded vote.
Now it's going to do so. So the motion is on Councillor Barnes' motion, amendment, which is basically saying that the two funds should be amalgamated except under exceptional circumstances. Councillor Thill, please.
Sorry,
point of order, I need to have other members stand to call for a recorded vote.
Okay. Can you please, I think it's 5, isn't it? Yeah. Okay,
Sorry, I think.
So we're going to have a recorded vote, thank you very much for that, on this subject. Councillor?
I understand you're very keen on this councillor being polite. I was actually standing with my microphone on and speaking when Councillor Maynard stood up and interrupted.
Mr. Thill, thank you very much for that. And can I just say to all members, I don't want to single out any one particular person, please can we make sure that at all times one person is speaking and nobody engages in side talk or interruptions. Okay, so all members, as I say, have been extremely good about that in this debate so far, but please can we just make sure that is observed totally. Thank you very much indeed. So we're now going to move to a vote, which will be a recorded vote.
Chair, can we just give Lisa a moment?
Yes? Can you just hold on a moment, please, whilst Lisa gets ready to conduct that.
Are we voting on the amendment?
We're voting on the amendment. Yeah? All right, first of all, those in favour, please, can you show? No? So go. Okay, Lisa will now take you through one by one.
Right, thank you, members. So I'm going to read your names out, and if you can just please answer for, against, or abstain. John Barnes.
For the amendment.
Mrs. Barnes. Bayliss. Biggs. Burton. Byrne. Chowdhury. Clark. Against? Was that Clark? Against. Coleman. Against. Cooper. Creaser.
Against?
Field.
Against?
Ganley. Gray.
Against.
Hayward. Giawan. Colleen. Kirby Green. 4. Legg. Maynard. McCourt.
Against.
McGurk. Oliver.
Osborne, Pearce,
4.
Rathbone Ariel,
Against the amendment.
Stanger,
Against.
Thomas,
Against.
Timpey,
Against.
Winter.
The amendment is lost. We now move to the next item, which is CB 2414. Oh, sorry, no, sorry, my apologies. Yeah? Oh, we had to note that on the original. Okay. We now.
The recommendation.
We've got one more.
Yes, but we need to deal with the seal. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. We need to conclude the seal debate. We've just had an amendment lost. Now you just need to approve. Go back to the fully. The original motion.
Okay. Well, we now go back to the original motion. So that's the original motion in respect of the seal. So that's what we're voting on there. Now, those in favour of the original motion, can you please show? Thank you very much. Sorry, can you keep your hands up? And those against, please.
It's carried.
So the original motion is carried. We now move to the next item, which is CB 2414, the BIFA contract and the food waste update, which I think was Councillor Osborne. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
So, to declare interest. Thank you. And sum up.
Don't panic, I won't mention any financial figures because I know they're all confidential. What I just wanted to say was, sat in on the meeting of this, I would pay tribute in the first instance to the officers on the work of this and the contractor BIFA, who are excellent, and I'm glad to see an extra 7 years working with them because they are really, really good. My only concern is, and I get it that it's the right thing to do. Our waste trucks are the biggest sort of carbon producer that this authority has anything to do with. So the move to sort of the treated vegetable oil, if you like, green diesel is a good one from our point of view as a council of reducing their emissions and everything else. But the only concern is the cost. And given that we've got a big, fair lump of a hole in our budget, I just want to reiterate and make sure that we can afford one and not sort of half bankrupt the council in the meantime. So it'd be better off to have a council and a contractor working at the same time as opposed to a contractor who hasn't got a council because we're nearly bust. But it's not as bad as that, obviously, but it's just a concern I have. But the rest of it is fine. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne, for expressing that concern. You're not actually putting forward an amendment, just simply making a comment. And I believe Councillor Maynard would like to speak now.
Thank you, Chairman. And again, we know that this local authority and local authorities, upper tier, lower tier, up and down this country are and have been finding the financial situation tough ever since 2010. We know, going forward, that in terms of this, redeclare my personal interest, I should have done before I spoke, so apologies, Chairman. We know that we are going to have to make savings, big savings, of several £1 million. Any growth item, therefore, Chairman, has to be considered extremely carefully. And I know what the previous government wanted to do in terms of making sure that refuse vehicles were clean and green. I know what this government will want the same thing. But the government aren't saying, here's a huge pot of money, go and spend it on doing that. They're saying, you as the local authority will pick up the ticket. Ladies and gentlemen, we just can't afford it. It's as simple as that. We can't make the figures public today, but if we wanted to do this, what services are we going to cut, Jim? how many people are we going to make redundant? We have to be honest with our electorate. And to do something like this, for the kind of figures that we're talking about, and I would agree with Councillor Osborne, assure you that we won't talk about those figures specifically, but we just can't afford it, Chairman. And for that reason and that reason only, and to be financially responsible, I would encourage members to vote against it.
Sir Barnes, please. Thank you, Councillor Maynard.
I think we're all speaking with extreme reluctance. But we do know, because we had the figures for the first quarter at the last overview and scrutiny, we are over budget already. We know that we have to make a huge amount of savings. It really is getting on for a very substantial part of our revenue budget. We've already had to take an awful lot out of the maintenance of recreation. We made some green changes there which have helped. I'd like to be able to say that this is the right decision, because it is. But whether we can afford it, I think, is a very different matter. I can't vote against it because I think we're going in the right direction. But I would ask Cabinet to think very seriously how they are going to find this money and make public what is actually going to be sacrificed to enable this to happen. Because we need to be transparent with our electorate. If we are going to make these hard choices, and this is a particularly difficult one, I think, frankly, we are reaching the wrong decision at the moment, and we do actually need to preserve some of our essential services, which I think are going to be under threat at the end of this year.
Councillor Barnes. Councillor Tinley, please.
I'm not sure if I've pressed the right one. Yeah. Okay. I'd like to know what our esteemed colleagues across the room would actually do instead. You're going to have vehicles that will no longer be appropriate, and the service that we currently have will simply not exist. So your alternative, I don't hear one, other than you're risk averse in that you don't want to fund this essential service. I'm sorry, Councillor Maynard, it's no good mumbling and shaking your head. It's correct that we need these new vehicles. We have no choice with the food waste. There is no choice. And what we are doing actually saves us money, because if we had Biffa...
Request that certain members of this council do not make remarks when other speakers have the floor. If this continues, I may have to take some action in relation to it. Thank you. Councillor Tinley, carry on, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As I was saying, if Biffa were to purchase these vehicles, where do you think our contract would go? It would go through the roof because it would be passed on to us. We are having to finance them at a savings, and it's all been looked into. You've all seen the figures. We can't reveal them now. They make sense. They are logical. Give me a terrific alternative, which you can't come up with one. So this will pass, and I...
Thank you, Councillor Tinley. Are there any further contributions? Councillor Killen, please.
Sorry, just looking through the documentation received this evening, it actually says that capital funding has been received from DEFRA to cover the cost of purchasing both food waste collection vehicles and the kitchen and curbside caddies. And it does go on to say that, yes, there is a shortfall, but officers have endeavoured to sort this out. And we are looking for another DEFRA grant allocation. So I'm not sure I see the problem.
Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't sure that we actually have an alternative. I would have thought that it's a statutory duty to collect waste. The last government brought forward the collection of food waste, which is something which we've got to adapt to. If you recall, pre-2019, we had a very inefficient waste collection service that was creating an awful lot of resident concern, a lot of cost. Our current contractors are, comparing a Ford Escort and a Maserati, they are doing an excellent service. We don't get complaints. We don't get the issues that were there. We could have gone out and looked at it somewhere else, as they've done in Kent. I believe it's Suez. And I was talking to Malcolm Johnson recently, and he's even complained about the problems there. So all of a sudden, he's moved into the customer sort of situation. I don't think we have an alternative. There is a new burdens funding for this. I don't think we have an alternative. I think we actually said this when we were meeting the officers and said, is there an alternative? And I don't think there is, sadly. But perhaps somebody has got an alternative that could share it with officers. But, this is where we are. And yes, I agree, difficult decisions will have to be made. We don't know what's around the corner. We've got a new government. They might even pull the plug on some of this. We don't know. But this is where we are, and where we are, we must move forward.
Councillor Arthur, just to confirm, we don't actually have an amendment in front of the Council at this stage. Are there any further contributions, please, before I move to a vote? So this is a vote on the original proposition in relation to the BIFA contract and food waste update. So those in favour of the original motion, please show. And those against? I declare that carried overwhelmingly. So we now move to item 8. Thank you very much, Council, for your debate on those subjects. Point 8, to receive the report of the Audit and Standards Committee on a matter for determination by the full Council at its meeting held on the 17th of June 2024. Councillor John Barnes to speak, please. Thank you.
In the absence of Councillor Drayson, I move this motion. I believe I have also to move, and possibly I may couple that with the motion, the names of those who are actually going to serve on the new Standards Committee. Councillor Biggs, Byrne, Gray, Legg and Killeen have been appointed as substantive members, with Councillors Burton, Creaser, Drayson, Field and Kirby Green as substitute members. I so move, Chairman.
Do I have a second of this motion? Councillor Biggs, please. Thank you. Right, now, at this point, I will call over the report, and the report is AS 24-9, proposed change to the decision-making structure, the separation of the Audit and Standards Committee. No one? Right. So as the minute has not been called and has not been reserved for discussion, it has been moved and seconded. I shall now put that motion to the vote. All those in favour, please show. I think that's unanimous, so I don't need to ask who's against. Right, now we come to item 9, to receive the report of the Chief Executive on the change to committee membership, and so Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move the report of the Chief Executive to be received.
Second to that, please. Councillor Killeen. Thank you. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Those against? Again, carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Number 10 now, to receive the report of the Chief Executive on appointments to outside bodies, the East Sussex Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee, the High Weald AONB Forum and Joint Advisory Committee, and the Safer Rother Partnership. Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move the report of the Chief Executive to be approved and adopted, and that the Councillors Byrne, Killeen, Thomas be appointed respectively.
Have a second of that, please. Councillor Gray. Are there any other nominations to serve on these outside bodies, please? There being none, as there are no other nominations, Councillor Byrne, Colleen and Thomas are appointed to the respective outside bodies. So, as we have concluded that item, I can now announce that the meeting is closed. We've closed at 7:27. So we've got through the business remarkably quickly this evening. Thank you very much, everybody, for your participation. Good night.